And we're live. Wait, sorry. I thought I was auditioning for the Raptors' new head coach.
I think
My
everybody.
apologies. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Just know that you are locked in onto the point with the king. You guys know what to do. Go find us. Apple, Amazon, Spotify. If you don't want to see these gorgeous faces, go ahead while you're carrying on through your day. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching us. Hook a brother up, click subscribe, click the bell if you really enjoy our content, right? Just so you can keep coming back, if you guys enjoy that background, the production, everything, you guys can check out our behind the scenes producer, Mr. Arturas. Yeah, I will be calling Lithuania later. You guys can talk to him. And thank you for enjoying and supporting and helping to promote our amazing guests that come on. Today, we have a special guest for you. Okay. I call him B, but Brian from behind the locker room, how are you doing today, my friend? And also, can you let the lovely ladies and gentlemen, the great viewers out there, the To The Point family, where to find you?
You can find me on Twitter, guys, at Beyond Locker Room. That's RM at the end. I'm usually out there with some musings about the Raptors as well as other NBA stuff, and usually I'm talking about some type of sport, so during the year. So definitely, hopefully you can check me out and follow me there on Twitter.
Yeah, RM, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that. Take out those double zeros because there's no losses on his stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so Brad, thanks for coming on. It's been a while. Um, Now, I reached out to you because this is an interesting topic here, and it's pretty hot right now. Now that like Skip and I, we did cover that after Nick Nurse got fired, we did kind of touch on why he got fired. But
Mm.
now, uh, since you and I, as older gents, we like to look forward instead of looking behind us because there's a lot to look back at. And my question to you is, now that Nick Nurse is no longer with the Raptors as the head coach, and there is an open vacancy, who would you like to see fill that spot?
Well, I am open to Jerry Stackhouse actually being the guy, um, and a few reasons why. One, yeah, he's kind of been quiet lately. I know at the beginning there was a lot of hot talk about it, but he's been kind of cooled down on that front. But one is he's an ex-player, and I think that would be giving a good insight for the players. We don't usually tend to get ex-players as coaches. The last one I can recall might be Sam Mitchell. So it'd be nice to get back to something like that. Two, he also has some connections with the Raptors, obviously coaching the 905 and being on the bench at one point. So he's familiar with the organization. So that's good for that standpoint. And three, he's hard nosed, man. Like he's not taking any guff from anybody. And I think he's a guy that will get the message across of what he wants done, when he wants done, and how he wants it done. And I think for this team, that's probably the most important thing that needs to come out, whatever coach or whoever coaches this team. So to me, he's been a winner pretty much everywhere he's gone as a coach. He's done the G League level. He's
Yep.
just coaching here in the SEC right now for Vanderbilt. So he's shown he can coach on multiple levels, and I think he's more than ready for take NBA coaching position.
That came way out of left field, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's baseball season and the Raptor season is done, but that came way out of left field, bro. That's an actually interesting take. I like the way you validated that. I wouldn't mind that at all. Now, who personally, if you were to ask me, who I would like
Who
to
you
see,
got?
I would like to see Adrian Griffin be promoted, right? Because that's within the organization, that's grassroots, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would like to see him. He's like Nick Nurse on offense. He's always like sitting there looking at the ball's this way, but he's looking at Adrian Griffin this way. Like, what do we do? What do we do now? What do we do? Right?
Right.
So he is a force within the team, and I'm pretty sure that he's already gained the respect from the players, and it is valued right towards an organization going forward. But That's what we'd like to see. We all like to see stuff. Everybody has dreams. But who do you think optimally would be the most effective coach out of all the names that are out there that are available that can possibly come to Toronto? Who do you think would be the most effective for this team to take them to that next level? With all bias aside,
yeah.
Who do you think?
You know what? I mean, yeah, I still love my Stackhouse pick, but if I remove Stackhouse out of the list in this case, and to answer your question, honestly, I think the guy that just lost his job yesterday might be that. Actually, it sounds strange to say so, but I think he's actually a really good fit with a good demeanor. And if you don't know who I'm referring to, folks, I'm talking about Monty Williams. And I kind of like him really more than anybody else that's remaining. And the only reason why I say so too is that I think this team, because it's in the middle of the pack team, it's not necessarily a young team. It's not necessarily an old veteran team, but it has some veterans to it. I think you need a guy in this case to kind of get going on the jump that doesn't necessarily need to have kind of like a ramp up period. Don't get me wrong, I'm open to any of the assistants they've talked to as well too. There's a couple guys I actually like as well too. But I think once again, Monty does kind of tick off some of the same boxes I mentioned about Stackhouse. Ex-player, has command of the room. Same thing as far as like, I think he's, for the most part, guys and players respect those players that, that you don't really hear too many folks have issues besides DeAndre Ayton, but that might be that might be more of an Ayton thing than a Monty Williams thing. But yeah, I think he's of interest to me to get into at least the next phase to get them back to like a team that's a winning product. So I think he's in my mind. If I have a bonus pick and I want to go a little more left field,
more.
I got one other guy. It's kind of mulling in. I mean, I'm curious to see one of the assistants in this case here, and in this case, the guy from Golden State, Jama Mahalia.
I was going to bring that up later. I went to school with Jama. Jama's my boy.
Okay, fair enough. Like, okay. So
I'm rooting for him. I'm gonna tag him in this video. Okay.
So he's a guy, I think, once again, similar to Stackhouse, obviously has connections to the Raptors, connections with Masai. Coming from the Warriors.
Directions to right here.
Right, coming from the Warriors group as well, and formerly from the Raptors. I think he's got a nice pedigree behind him. That I think
on the 905.
905 too, just like Stackhouse. So I think he's a guy. Obviously, he's not an ex-player, but I think he will also command a certain set of level of respect from guys like, you can't be some point guard talking a lot of nonsense what you want to do. And this guy's been assisting coaching Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Like, he's like, who? And dealt with Kyle Lowry in the past. Like, you're not gonna come here and talk to this guy. Like, he's seen what point guard plays like. Let's put it that way. Let's leave it at that.
I'll tell you this.
And he's seen what guard plays like.
I'll tell you this much. I played with him, alongside him, and against him in the early 90s. Let me tell you, boy could ball.
Oh yeah, I heard. Man. Yeah. He was a pretty decent player in his own right. So I'm not saying that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, he understood it way back then. You just jumped the gun on all of that.
Sorry, man.
That was my wild card.
Yeah, I hope I pronounced his surname right. That was the name I was trying to get.
It's Mahalela.
Mahalela. There you go. So
right?
My apologies to you and your family, sir. But I'm sure if you end up getting the job, I will know it pretty soon after a day. That I've never seen him on the bench, right? But it's assistant coaches don't get as much shine, obviously. But
he's a smart guy. And he's also a very good human being. I will tell you that I know him and a few other of my high school alumni who are on the basketball team. They did help set up camps in China to help out the underprivileged and to the people, bring awareness of the game to them. So kudos to you, my dude. No matter where you go, I always support you. You're an amazing person, and that's who I like. If I were to pick a real fan favorite, that's who I want to see.
There you
because
go.
I want to be able to call him up and be like, "Yo, Jake, give me some." Right? That's another story.
Right.
But with the Raptors, now that we've gone through who we would like to see, and optimally, and by the way, optimally, my pick is Bud Budenholzer, right? He's he's coming from championship pedigree. I don't know why the Bucks got rid of him. Maybe some of the players weren't responsive, and that does happen in the locker room. Trust me, as a former coach, I will tell you that. But when I see now that the Raptors have this open vacancy, if they were to bring another coach in to maybe, because let me preface this, Masai and Bobby have a vision of 6'9". They have their own vision. Maybe Nick Nurse didn't bring it to fruition, right? With his style and the way he wanted to coach. And maybe that's what happened for him to have to leave, right? Maybe there was something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. We don't know about. We can only speculate.
Yep.
As a couple guys on YouTube just talking. But right. But maybe if another, what are your thoughts on if maybe another coach were to come into the Raptors organization and utilize that formula that Bobby and Masai are aiming for? Do you think he can potentially unlock the potential? Yeah, I said it twice, ladies and gentlemen. Unlock the potential on a lot of the players, a lot of the talent that is on this roster. Because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we're all sitting here on YouTube talking. We're all in the comments. We're all on social media, but we ain't playing. We ain't got their skills. Do you think a new coach can bring out the potential in some of the players on the current roster?
That's a moving target. And I'm not ducking your question. I think it's just that depending who's left on this roster by the time that we roll around the opening tip. That's a whole nother discussion for the offseason. But assuming that we're going to stick with the roster essentially we have, plus said draft pick that comes in June. Yep. I think you have to look at. I guess I look at it this way: how many players in this case here do you think you can move the needle on, and how many players in this case are what they are? And I think parts of this is where things get kind of complicated when it comes to Nurse. Parts of it is actually on Nurse, and parts of it in this case here is not on Nurse. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
So let's take for example, I'll just throw out here. I hope he's not going to come after me in this case. So let's take Chris Boucher for example, right? I think what you have with Chris Boucher is he's the player that he is. And that is a fine player, a good rotational player. But I don't think you can squeeze any more out of that. So if the front office is thinking that he's not using Chris Boucher in the right way, I think they would be false in this case to think that Nick Nurse is not using Chris Boucher to his best abilities. If anything, I would say a player like Boucher probably needs more structure around him than less structure. Now, the other side of it from the front office standpoint, and you heard Masai mention this person's name a few times, which surprised me when that thing happened. Didn't expect that name to come out as many times, but it seemed to be a bit of a lightning rod and a bit of a flashpoint is Delano Banton, right? So now the Banton discussion, right? Everyone's worried about Flynn and doubting Banton in this case here, I thought had some opportunities to grow. He played well against Detroit, had 30-something points. He had another game about 17-16 against Atlanta, got hurt, and then is never seen of again. And when you have young players, man, you got to ride that stick. If you use a Kentucky Derby term, man, you got to get on that, man. You can't, right? You got to go to stick. You can't just let him sit there for 3 months and just rot. You head down the turn, the last turn, you got to go and stick. So when you got a guy like that, getting 31, you're getting 15 or 17 or whatever it might be the next game, he is starting to show flourish. He's starting to show confidence that you got to keep on poking and keep on developing. And yes, he's going to make mistakes, but for him not to see any time after he came back from the injury, that's malpractice by Nick Nurse in my mind. You just can't do that. Because who knows what type of player you have this year, or definitely what player you had next year if you had played some games.
You just said something, and I want to go off script here.
Sure.
I went through this before. You just mentioned Delano Banton. Okay. Mm-hmm. If give you a few points here. If the Raptors were to consider it a business, like the executives, the organization, you got the guy wearing number 45 from the Kipling bus, how he made it into the league, right? You have him in the G League, I'll say it, whooping ass, right? When he was there, right? Then, like you just said about having a young stud in the stable, you didn't say it in those words, but a young stud in the stable, right? That can haul ass. You also got, you just said, Malachi, right? You didn't really touch on him. But then you also got some young guys that can actually produce, like Colico, Precious, right? But they're not really getting their time to shine. And I think that did reflect on Nurse. That's why I would like to see what a new coach would have to, how they would use it, because we saw it this year, dude. Everybody out there, you guys can't disagree with me on this one. Nobody out there. Nick Nurse ran the core to the ground every game, right? And to be straight, I've been saying it since the beginning of the season that this bench does look good. You just mentioned Chris Boucher. That's your anchor on the bench. That's your sixth guy. And then you have these guys following up Delano, Precious, Malachi. Give them their, I'll say it right now. We're a little bit into it. So I can say it. Give them their fucking time to play, okay? Let them shine, right? Yeah, if you're going to utilize it for the future, because like right now, Freddie can go. Gary Trent could go. You don't know what could happen to Pascal now that he didn't make all NBA. You never know if he might walk at the end of his contract. You know, you're building around Scotty. You're looking towards the future, but you're still trying to keep current. And I think if a new coach were to come in, especially a younger one, like you mentioned, Monty, I like that idea, right? Maybe they could flourish. I'm sorry I was so sorry to cut you off, but you said something there that just sparked to me.
Right. And like I am on the opinion more than less that I think the bench in this case needs to be upgraded. There's a talent deficiency on our bench. However, I think there are some players on there that we just don't know how good they may be, because to your point, that, you know, and I think the two guys I think that are probably the biggest flashpoints, it seems like more than maybe left Flynn to a lesser extent, but more Koloko and Banton seem to be flashpoints of like where it's like comes to time. We saw it with Koloko for sure, where after Pirtle came, you would think the logic would be now you have a good solid veteran center to kind of bring up this new young center playing behind them, and then also make sure your defense always has a 7-footer on the floor. And for months after Pirtle came, we saw no Koloko. And then finally, with like 2 weeks remaining in the season, we have a Koloko sighting. And the numbers bear out that when he's on the court, he's a plus on not just the defensive end, which is obvious, but even on the offensive end, because he's a rim runner. But you never got to see it. Who knows if he got extra month or two with the team when Pirtle first got there? Who knows what type of player he would have been by the time you got to the end of the season? But that's the problem. You can't, it makes it hard for front offices and then judge what do they have and what they don't have, because you just don't know. And, that's the part where I think Nick Nurse really harmed himself in that sense. But as a new coach comes, that's one of the things they have to deal with as far as developing young players and making sure everyone knows what their role is and how it's defined.
Yeah, we've seen some of the most celebrated teams over the years, like you and I, we old heads. But we've seen over the years, like a lot of teams where they disperse the whole team, like through points and utilize them for what they got. Like you've seen, obviously my favorite team, the 05 Pistons. Those guys, nobody was a star. They all average double digits. Like we've seen the San Antonio Spurs over the years, right? Under Greg Popovich. Like we've seen guys come off the bench. Like if Nick Nurse had Kawhi at that age, do you think Kawhi would be coming off? Like we've seen a lot of different teams and a lot of like role players, like players that just come on to the court just to play a certain role, and they're happy with it because they're getting the minutes, they're getting the time to do it. That's what I think needs to really be the culture change within the Raptors organization, because over the last couple of years we've seen without Kawhi, Nick Nurse has really just went.
Well, I think to your point, without Kawhi and without Lowry, I think the organization element of it is the key word.
Well, Kawhi built himself up through the San Antonio Spurs organization.
No, I'm just saying, but I'm just talking about how those two guys were able to, to me, they were like the ones in this case that were actually setting the tone for what's on the court. A little less than Nick Nurse. I think if you saw Kyle left, obviously Leonard, but once Kyle left, you can start seeing the deterioration happen quite quickly. And I think what you're seeing, I think one of the things when you mentioned organization, that there's one of the weaknesses I find with Nick Nurse. To your point, you coach, everybody in this case here, if you played, you just don't want to know where your minutes are coming from. That's what you want to know. When you show up on the floor, I'm getting 10 minutes tonight, I'm getting 20 minutes tonight, you just know what you're getting. And you can't have guys showing up one day, they're playing 25 minutes, next night they're a DNP. Like, it just can't work.
Yeah, because you can't keep your players happy. Like they'll come up, sometimes they won't come up to you on the bench when you're coaching, when you got your clipboard out. They won't come up to you. but they'll be sitting at the end of the bench looking at you like, right? And then you'll see it in the locker room, and you'll see the dejection mentally from them being on the court and that disconnect, right? Like when they come on, they're just trying to up their value because they know like they're not being utilized properly. Let me do something
out, right?
to go somewhere else and maybe I can flourish there, right? Like case in point, Gary Trent Jr. when he was on Portland, he tried to show up and show out, and the Raptors saw that and picked him up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's just a microcosm of my point, what I'm saying. But if you were to utilize the guys and have them as a team, this is the one thing that always trips me out about football. Like when I played football, I'm a wide receiver, right? So I get the touchdowns, I get the shine, I get the happiness, right? The quarterback gets all the girls, you know what I mean? But the real people that are making it happen are the linemen, right? The cornerbacks, the defense, the safeties, right? Those are the real guys. They understand their role. They understand they're not going to be the greatest, but they're getting their time to do it, right? And that's what I think. If, like I said at the beginning, I'm auditioning for the Raptors head coach because I would include all the players on the team. Like, I'll give you a quick little funny anecdote here. I cannot say who or which players, but I know there's a couple of them. And one of them this past season had a major birthday and went to the restaurant, and out of a $3,000 bill, tipped about 4%, 5% when you break down the math. Didn't even want his birthday cake. Didn't even care for it after it was a big thing. So some of these guys, they look like and I'm telling you, but he's a good guy, right? He's just been dejected and disconnected, right? Another player I've seen have to get thrown out of the bar due to drinking too much before a game the next day. And I'm thinking in my head, like, where are these players' heads at? Do you not think a proper coach would tell them, get your ass in the room right now and be ready for tomorrow? I want to see you on the court at 7 a.m. ready to go. Right? So I think if there was like, honestly, like I say, if Greg Popovich were to be like the coach of this Raptors, they could definitely be contenders.
I wouldn't go that far with it, but I think they would.
Just give you an example, right?
Yeah, they would be a playoff team. I think they would be a playoff team in my mind if you had a coach of Popovich's stature, or even some of the other guys we maybe discussed. Because I think Nick Nurse, I am fascinated to see what his next coaching job looks like. Because I'm curious to see, is this just a Raptor thing, or is this this is really a Nick Nurse thing? Because if he's not doing the same thing for his X team that he goes to next, where he's playing the starters into the ground, as you said, and he can't figure out what a bench is, and he's got sporadic rotations, I'm going to say, at that point, you're going to be shrugging your shoulder like, at that point.
I think he's going to get a major role on Murdoch Mysteries after that episode.
Oh, wow.
But, B, before we get out of here, because we're a little bit short on time right now, I want to throw you, like, some rapid shots, okay?
Yeah.
I want to hear your yes and no, and maybe 2-3 words as to why. Okay. For the Raptors next the coaching position. Sorry, the first one's making me laugh. JJ Redick.
I'm gonna take it more seriously than you. No, but I'm not a hard no, but I'm a no. But I'm not a hard no.
I'm a hell no. We talked about Adrian Griffin. David Adelman, who was interviewed.
Adelman, it's the last name here, so that gives you an interesting intrigue on like maybe what Masai and company are looking for. Someone's a little more offensive oriented, which I'm very happy to hear that. So because if anything, this team needs a jolt of is like some offensive creativity. So I'm happy to see that Adelman would provide that, considering how his pops is and that type of philosophy they have. So that's an interesting choice.
Sergio Scalaro.
Open to it. Once again, connection with the organization, so that's all right. But at this point, I would say probably no.
Really, you wouldn't want to see him come back?
I would say He hasn't really been, let's put it this way. He hasn't really been talked about much from anyone else, right? So you have to ask yourselves, why is that, right? Like, I haven't heard him in any other discussions for any other jobs at this point. Detroit's been sitting out there.
Well, his contract is up in Barcelona, where he's at right now.
Guys find a way. You always find a way to talk to folks, okay? Becky Hammond was getting discussions and having interviews.
That was my next one. Becky Hammond.
Yeah. I am open to Becky Hammond. I think Becky Hammond is kind of the same type of attributes, very similar to Stackhouse. She's a winner. She's got experience. She doesn't take down guff as well too. And I think she would definitely provide role definition in this case here on this team. So I'm open to Hammond. I think the timetable would never work. So that's why I think more likely she wouldn't be. But yeah, I'm cool with that.
I would like to see her become the first female head coach in the NBA. It would be great, and especially having it international right here in Toronto. The only thing that rubbed me wrong was her comments. I'm looking after my girls. I don't want to take care of boys. Whoa. Right there, I was like,
I think people misinterpreted that, because I think I saw that as like, I'm focusing on the team I have right now. I'm not dealing with them at this point here. And I think she was giving respect to her own squad, that if you saw someone else ask that of any NBA team, if they were going for a job.
I get you. Trying to put the girls right up there with the guys.
This is my team. I got a championship team. I'm respecting my team. I'm 2 weeks out from regular season. I'm not talking about this. Now, I wish the coach that we used to have in this case would actually take some of her advice and do stuff like that when they asked him anything about that. And he went on a diatribe about life and where he's going to be.
You know what? Another one I wanted to ask you was, we didn't really touch on it, but Bud Budenholzer, who has now been relieved of duties on Milwaukee.
Yeah, Mike Budenholzer, I'm not as strong on the position as you are with him. I have very much a lot of concerns about him when it comes to strategy, when it comes to allocating minutes for his key players. He's almost like the anti-Nick Nurse, where it's like, hey man, like, look man, I think Giannis a pretty strong boy. You think you can play more than 31 minutes a game? I think you can squeeze a little more juice out of that a little bit than 31 minutes a game. Like, come on. So I think, and also too, his strategy or lack of adjustments at times, that would concern me with Budenholzer. It's happened too many times that once he gets figured out, it gets ugly real quick in the playoffs, and it's with two organizations now. Just saying, I would be disappointed if it's Bud. Let's put it that way. That's me personally. I would be like,
I wouldn't mind seeing him behind the bench. My bad. Just to correct myself, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't Barcelona for Sergio. Mm-hmm. It's actually somebody else. Hold on, let me make a call. Hey, Lithuania, let me talk to Art. Yo, Art, how do you say this guy's name? Sarunas Jasakavicius. Apparently, thanks, Art. I love you. I'll talk to you. Apparently, he just left Barcelona after a great season, and he's very much under the radar. So before we get out of here, let's leave that one for another day.
There's a few other guys in this case. There are assistants we haven't gotten into either, and
exactly.
Even Atkinson. So I'll leave that be.
Yeah, but Brian, this has been a great conversation, man. We're running out of time. Mm-hmm. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, bro. We will talk very soon. Maybe we can have that debate that we were having earlier prior to hitting record. So, Brian, thank you again. Much appreciated. You're always a welcome in our home. Mi casa y su casa. So, on behalf of myself, Brian, the To The Point family, and you viewers out there who I consider To The Point family, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and peace.